Battle Beast lay on the battlefield, his massive frame battered and broken, his body covered in deep wounds from his brutal fight with Thragg. Blood seeped from his injuries, staining the scorched ground beneath him. But even in his final moments, a flicker of satisfaction remained in his eyes. He had lived for battle, and he had finally found a warrior worthy of his strength. With a final breath, he looked up at Thragg, his lips curling into a faint, almost grateful smile. "Thank you," he rasped, his voice fading as his life slipped away. Thragg, though victorious, was far from unscathed. His body bore deep wounds, his Viltrumite durability pushed to its absolute limit. He could barely stand, and his vision blurred as his body threatened to collapse from exhaustion. Yet, despite his injuries, he reached down and, with the last of his strength, crushed Battle Beast's heart in his hand. The mighty warrior, undefeated until this day, was no more. The Thraxans, watching the battle unfold, erupted into cheers. To them, Thragg was not just a leader. He was their god of war, an unbreakable ruler whose power knew no limits. Even as he stumbled, barely clinging to consciousness, they rushed to his side. His battered body was carefully lifted and carried back to their ships, taken away for treatment. His reign would continue, and his victory would be immortalized in the annals of their history. Meanwhile, above the battlefield, Space Racer and Thresha watched the destruction from their orbital position. The devastation below was immeasurable. Entire cities lay in ruins, countless lives lost. Thresha, overcome with rage and sorrow, demanded that they fight back, that they avenge Battle Beast's death. But Space Racer, understanding the impossible odds, knew that staying would mean certain death. Before she could act, he knocked her unconscious, ensuring their escape. Their ship veered away from the war-torn planet, its engines flaring as they fled into the vastness of space. Unaware of what had transpired, Mark and Oliver arrived at Thraxa to investigate. The planet's surface was almost unrecognizable. Charred remains of buildings stretched as far as the eye could see, and the ground was littered with debris. They surveyed the devastation, their expressions grim. An elder Thraxan approached them, his face solemn. The warlord was victorious, he stated simply. The battle claimed many lives, and our cities lie in ruin. Battle Beast fought valiantly, but his body was incinerated in honor of his defeat. Thragg has left the planet. Mark and Oliver exchanged glances. Thragg had won, and now, he was out there somewhere, recovering, preparing for whatever came next. They couldn't let this stand. The duo returned to their ship, discussing their next move. Oliver suggested they locate Space Racer and Thresha, hoping they had more information. As they debated their course of action, a crew member monitoring the scanners suddenly called out. Floating amidst the wreckage of destroyed ships, they spotted two figures adrift in space. Space Racer and Thresha, their bodies motionless. Acting quickly, Mark and Oliver retrieved them, placing them into stasis pods. It wasn't long before they regained consciousness, though Thresha's reaction was immediate and violent. Overwhelmed with grief and fury, she lashed out, attempting to fight her way free. It took both Mark and Oliver to restrain her, preventing her from doing any real damage. Space Racer intervened, stepping between them, and placed a hand on her shoulder. His voice was heavy with sorrow. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "Battle Beast is gone." Silence filled the room. Thresh's shoulders shook as she fought back tears. There was nothing more to say. Later that night, Mark returned home, weary from the day's events. Eve was waiting for him, concern etched on her face. "Alan might need my help again," Mark admitted. "We have to find Thragg before it's too late." Eve hesitated, then asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. "How many children do you think he's made?" Mark exhaled sharply. He didn't want to think about it, but the reality was impossible to ignore. Thragg was ensuring the Viltrumite race's survival in his own twisted way, fathering offspring at an alarming rate. The longer they waited, the harder it would be to stop him. As the conversation shifted, Eve tried to lighten the mood, gently teasing Mark, attempting to draw him into intimacy. But the shadow of his past trauma loomed over him. Even as he tried to respond, the weight of his experience with Anissa held him back. Eve, sensing his hesitation, softened. "It's okay," she whispered. "We'll take this one step at a time." The moment passed, unresolved but understood. They lay in silence until Tara's cries broke through the quiet of the night. Mark rose from bed, moving to care for his daughter. Holding her in his arms, he found a strange sense of peace. He changed her diaper, fed her, soothed her when she fussed. The simple act of taking care of her grounded him, reminding him of what truly mattered. As morning arrived, Eve woke to the sight of Mark cradling Tara. "You two seem to be getting along," she said with a smile. Mark chuckled. "She threw up on me twice, but I think we're bonding." Eve laughed and stretched. "Want breakfast?" Mark thought for a moment. "Let's go out for lunch instead." The three of them spent the afternoon together, exploring the city. They found a restaurant that served food similar to what they had back on Earth, and later wandered through a nearby park. As they walked, Mark noticed a young alien girl struggling with what appeared to be a pet. Smiling, he helped retrieve the creature and handed it back to her, only for the girl to promptly devour it whole. Mark and Eve exchanged horrified glances, while the child beamed up at them in satisfaction. "Okay, that's going to take some getting used to," Mark muttered. Eve shook her head, laughing despite herself. She turned to him, taking his hand in hers. "I love you, Mark." He squeezed her hand gently. "I love you too." Meanwhile, aboard Thragg's ship, his offspring continued to be born. The Thraxan women, exhausted yet honored to bear his children, watched as their leader slowly recovered from his battle. One of them approached, her voice laced with concern. "How are you feeling, my lord?" Thragg, now draped in a new cape, let a smirk tug at the corner of his lips. The hide of Battle Beast, his greatest foe, now adorned his shoulders, a trophy of his victory. He exhaled deeply, his wounds still aching, but his resolve stronger than ever. "My health is improving," he said, his voice filled with quiet menace. And that's the story, folks. Please leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. See you next time.